Hello everybody, welcome back. Today I'm excited to be making a bit of a different kind of video. As you know, I rarely, if at all, do any reviews on this channel, but I know from your comments and your questions and your messages that a lot of you are not interested just in playing the guitar, but also in making your music. And by making your music, of course, nowadays it means recording it and editing it, mixing, and producing it in general. And because a lot of us work out of home studios with certain considerations such as noise and neighbors and acoustics, then the headphones have become a crucial part of our setup. And because through the years I've produced and released several records and I've had hundreds of students and of course all of you out there whom I appreciate very much, I've done my share of answering the question, what headphones should I buy? And I've always had two main answers to that, even though of course we should all pick our own headphones, but for the non-budget conscious, I have to say I often suggested the Sennheiser HD600, which is one of my main headphones. But for those looking to get the most bang for their buck, the Beyerdynamic DT770 Pro were always my top suggestion. Not the top studio headphone in the world maybe, but for the price, very, very hard to beat. And so I was very pleasantly surprised when Thomann got in touch with me to see if I would like to review this very special edition of the DT770 Pro, which was produced to celebrate Thomann's 70th anniversary. If you followed me for some time, you know I rarely publish reviews, and then only when I truly want to share something with you that I would buy myself or recommend to my friends and family. And because I've been recommended the DT770 Pros for 20 plus years, I actually feel great about introducing them to you. Thomann did provide these headphones for review, but they have of course no say in the making of this video and will only see it when you do. By the way, the Thomann 70th anniversary edition of these headphones are exactly the same as a standard model except for this little engraving here, and maybe more importantly they come with a hard case instead of a bag, but more on that later. In a professional studio, it's normal to have several headphones, each performing different tasks, such as tracking or monitoring, etc. For me in the studio, one of my main headphones has always been the HD600, as we said earlier, and you can see they're well worn. And these are great headphones, but they also have their problems. They're open back, so they're not great for tracking or for miking up a guitar amp, for example. They sound a little clinical, and also they're twice the price, so they're not for everyone. For other things, I might use something like this, the AKG 240. That's another studio classic, but they also, of course, have their drawbacks. So a lot of us don't want to have 10 pairs of headphones. We want to find one for a good price that will do everything and hopefully will do it great. And the DT770 Pro's design and features, along with the price of approximately 130 euros, $150, might make them the affordable all-around home studio headphone. So let me share with you everything I love about them and of course any potential concerns or flaws I might find. Let's begin, starting with design. As we said, this special Thomann edition of the DT770 Pros are exactly the same as the classic headphone. The ear cups are made of a very strong, hard plastic, which actually feels great. And they also have an extremely sturdy metal frame, which is very important for durability. The ear pads, they're very soft, but also firm, just how I like them. And you'll notice when I put them on that I start screaming because they provide a very good seal around the ear, which is of course along with the closed back very important for certain studio applications. You'll also notice that when not in use they stay shut, so this adds also to the durability in case of a drop or in case you throw them across the room in a fit of studio rage. They're also quite light at 270 grams, which along with the very well designed headband and the earpods we saw earlier makes them very comfortable to wear for several hours at a stretch. And if you'll be recording and editing and mixing your music, you'll be wearing these for quite some time. Now they might not be as comfortable as some of the higher end open back headphones, but for their design they do a great job on comfort. One great thing about Beyerdynamic is that their design is very modular, so you'll be able to easily find and replace the headband and the ear pads. Now the cable is non-detachable, which is a bit of a bummer to me. You can actually find a cable and buy it from Beyerdynamic, but you'll have to get in there and change it. Now, if you're comfortable with a screwdriver and a soldering iron, you'll have no problem doing it yourself, but it would have been nice to see a detachable cable that you can just buy a replacement for and plug it in. I have to say though, this cable is very thick and sturdy, so with normal use, you should have no problem at all. Also, the cable is very, 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 very long, which of course is a good thing unless you get yourself tied up in knots with it. Finally, as mentioned earlier, this Thomann Anniversary Edition comes with a hard case included with the headphones, and so it's easier to keep them and store them and move them safely. Now, this usually is a €40 add-on if you buy separate, so if you're on the market for these headphones, this might be a good time to get them. I talked to Saskia at Thomann and asked specifically for how long you'll be able to get this, and she said that the 70th anniversary gear will go until September 2024, and after that until supplies last. So if you want to take advantage of that, I'll link it below for your convenience. So as far as design goes, comfort and durability are very important in the home studio, and these guys do very well in both regards. Looks might be secondary to sound, of course, but if you're gonna be wearing something all day, it might as well have this classic look, right? Now, these headphones are closed back, as we said earlier, and of course that's a design feature, but it has so much to do with how the headphones sound and how we can use them in the studio that we're gonna talk about this feature in the sound and application sections coming right up. Before we get into the specifics of how the DT770 Pro sound, we must discuss very quickly the several impedance options on offer here. This headphone comes in 32, 80 and 250 ohms, and it's important to note that this 70th anniversary Thomann edition only is available at 80 ohm. Without getting too technical, the higher the impedance, the more power we need to drive the headphones. So the 32 ohm version is great for general use, maybe with your iPhone or with a laptop, whereas the 250 ohm requires more power, such as, for example, a studio headphone amp to work properly. The 80 ohm is kind of the best of both worlds, and I think that's why they picked it for this special edition, in that it still works well with consumer level gear. For example, I plugged it into my Mac Mini, the regular headphone out, and I had plenty of volume, not deafening, but certainly enough for any sane use you might make of these headphones. And then of course I tried it with a bunch of studio gear, my old 4-track Tascam and my Moogs, and certainly my Apollo audio interface, and it works flawlessly with plenty of headroom and sounds great. So 80 ohm is where it's at for most applications. Now, as far as the actual sound, here's my impressions. Keep in mind that I've been using these headphones for many years and I know them very well, and still I can certainly hear in them the Beyerdynamic sound, and that's not a bad thing. You know, several brands have certain sounds. There certainly is a Sennheiser sound, there certainly is a Focal sound, there certainly is a AKG sound, and yes, we have a Beyerdynamic sound. And keeping with the Beyerdynamic DNA, I would say these headphones sound quite natural. Now, I wouldn't say it 100% neutral, but natural. And also very precise in both the verticality of sound, think frequencies low to high, but also spatially. Imagine dynamics, distance, the overall stereo soundstage, and so on. Because they're closed back, there's a little extra emphasis on the bass, which makes them sound very full, but still manages to be accurate. And actually the richness in the sub 100 Hz region is quite fantastic, actually. A problem a lot of budget headphones often have is when they cross over between bass to mids and then mids to highs, that some frequencies can feel a little bumpy. And that's certainly not the case here. Despite its prominent bass, the mids still retain absolute clarity and a certain point, which is very important in the frequency spectrum for so many instruments in the studio, but especially for guitar players. Think between 1 to 4K, there's a lot of stuff living there, and you want to have clarity in that area, and these really deliver. Now, the highs in true Beyerdynamic fashion are quite present and revealing, but to me they don't sound harsh unless the material is, and that's kind of what we want from a good, trustworthy pair of studio headphones. Still, these are Beyerdynamic, so if you're overly sensitive to high frequencies, I suggest you give them a try first. Overall, for sound, I would say the DT770 Pros are pleasant to listen to, but you never feel that you're being lied to, which is extremely important. It's very hard to find the balance in a headphone between the two, and I think these deliver in spades, especially at this price point. So are these good for recording in the home studio? My answer to that is a resounding yes. They are great for that application of tracking in the studio. Because of their design and their sonic thumbprint, these are actually perfect for that. The closed back and the ceiling ear pads provide enough isolation that you really have not to worry about bleeding to a microphone or, for example, pickups. Also, I tried using them to mic up a guitar cabinet at fairly high volume, and as long as your expectations are reasonable, these work for pretty much all applications. These are not drummer headphones, they're not sealed headphones. There will be some interaction with the outside world, but for most uses in the studio, these are certainly more than capable. While mixing on headphones is somewhat controversial and not often recommended, it's something more and more people are doing nowadays because of budget constraints, noise considerations, and also not having a room whose sound they can trust. But if you are going to mix on headphones, the DT770 Pros might not be the best headphone out there for mixing, but it certainly is a more than viable option as long as you learn and know how they sound. They will give you all the sonic information you need, though slightly colored and filtered by their design and their sonic thumbprint. In an ideal world, get yourself a great sounding room, get yourself some good speakers, get to know them, and get to mixing. But if that's not possible, I would certainly give these a shot. While you might not buy the Beyerdynamic DT770 Pros for their general or pleasurable listening pedigree, they certainly can work very well for a fun but also precise experience when listening to your favorite records. Some studio headphones, such as the HD600, can sound a bit cold and clinical. Dare even say boring when you're listening to your favorite record through them. That's why I bought a long time ago the Sennheiser Momentum, which, as you can see, have been used extensively, and these provide a much more pleasurable experience when it comes to simply sitting back and enjoying music. I would say the DT770 Pros fall somewhere in between maybe. They're not as clinical as some other studio headphones, but certainly they won't be as warm and as involving and as comfy as headphones designed for listening pleasure. Very much like speakers, headphones are pieces of gear that no matter how great they are, we really have to spend some time to get to know them and their idiosyncrasies. As long as they tick all the right boxes, we can do great work with any great quality headphone or speaker for that matter. That the DT770 Pros can go head to head with the HD600, for example, and other headphones for half the price still makes them my go-to when I'm asked to recommend or suggest a pair of headphones for the home studio or even for the budget conscious pro. So in summary, I can wholeheartedly tell you that if you're in the market for a great pair of studio headphones that won't break the bank but cover all the bases for your studio work, you'll be hard pressed to find a better option than the Beyerdynamic DT770 Pros. Headphones are something very personal, I think, and we really have to get to know them and hear them for ourselves before we make up our mind. And I have to say that Thomann's 30-day hassle-free return policy, I think, will give you some peace of mind in that regard. And no, they did not ask me to say this in the video. Before I leave you, let me stress how important it is to take care of our ears. It's so easy to do irreversible damage to our hearing, it's scary. So if you plan on spending a long time listening to headphones every day, please do so at low volume, take frequent breaks, and never ever push into discomfort. I want you to be making records decades from now, so please take care of those ears for me. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you to Beyerdynamic and Thomann for making this video possible, and I look forward to seeing you all very soon. Bye bye.